Hey, it's Nate with Pulse PEMF, and we are live at the 2025 Biohacking Conference in Austin, Texas, where innovators and inventors are gathering to share ideas, and we're just spreading the energy here at the Pulse PEMF booth, and we're continuing to pioneer, not just in the PEMF industry, but also in the wellness industry. And I have a pioneer with me, Kayla Barnes. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So you're going to actually be sharing at the conference here. Could you give us a little sneak peek on what you're going to be talking about?
Yeah, I'm doing a talk on Friday. We're going to be talking all things female longevity. You know, it's exciting that there is so much buzz around the longevity, biohacking space. I mean, just this conference is a testament, right? I mean, I've been coming to this conference for years and it's massive. There's so many people.
It's getting bigger and bigger.
It's getting bigger and bigger. And I love to see that. So many people are interested. But, you know, women are not small men, so we do need our own protocol. So,
well said.
So I'm going to be sharing, what I'm doing, labs, modalities that I'm using, therapies. Going to be talking about Pulse PEMF, as I'm a huge fan.
Come on.
You guys know I have a device at the house. I'm about to get two. I'm going to have two devices at my house soon. So
you can pulse friends and yourself at the same time.
Yeah, that's like community. Being social is such an important part of longevity. So making sure to pulse with friends is essential.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. In our last interview, you had a full-length interview, which I encourage our viewers to go on our YouTube channel and watch that whole segment, because Kayla dropped so many truth bombs that just really help you understand the holistic scope of what it means to embrace a holistic lifestyle, especially for women. And so I wanted to say, as one of the top female longevity experts in the world, what would you say to the women who are just getting started? Because it can feel a little intimidating with so many modalities and conflicting news on social media. What would you speak to the women who are just getting started and need a good starting point and not feeling overwhelmed?
Yeah, before even really getting into the devices or a lot of these different therapies, you have to master the basics. And the good thing is these things are free or pretty much low cost. So things like optimizing sleep. So get into bed before 10 p.m. I'm in bed every night at 8:30. Keep a consistent sleep-wake schedule. Sleep for women, for both sexes, but for women is so critically important, because with poor sleep, our natural killer cells are decreased, our immune system is compromised, our blood pressure is increased. We have issues with blood sugar control. We have increased hunger hormone, ghrelin. This is all like one night of poor sleep, right? We're having a crisis of continual poor sleep for women and men. But go to bed, before 10, have a wind down routine. So something like, really dark room, cool room, no eating 3 hours at least prior to bed. I'm done eating at 3:30 p.m. every day.
Oh, wow.
So they're just really focusing on sleep, high quality nutrition, ditch all the ultra processed foods, ditch the processed foods, focus on whole foods. I don't think we need to be camp so extreme. It's just Mediterranean type diet. So that incorporates pretty much all food groups, lots of plants, vegetables, organic when possible. Adequate protein intake, really important. We know that women lose muscle mass pretty precipitously around like perimenopause, menopause. So adding on muscle through, not only what we eat, but also exercise. If you can just start incorporating exercise, strength training, like 2-3 times a week, a little bit of cardio, vascular training, really important. If you're at home and you want to do a little longevity measurement, you could look at your grip strength. So that's a big indicator of longevity. You can look at something
I have been reading about that.
Yeah,
recently.
VO2 max. So grip strength is a proxy. You don't want to just train grip strength, right?
Right.
Because that's going to be like cheating the system. You're not going to be getting accurate results, but it's a proxy for your overall strength, which we know more muscle mass, better longevity to a point. I will say, once you get to, like bodybuilding, kind of like really super physiological levels of muscle, that also becomes not so healthy. But for women, strength training, eating well, sleeping well, get some morning sun to boost your circadian rhythm and help that sleep-wake cycle. Also really good to balance your hormones. So those things are all simple, like free or relatively low cost practices. Start there.
I love
and then
that.
Layer on PEMF and layer on NADIVs, and maybe you do like a targeted blood test to see what supplements you need to take. So, and look at labs. I would think that everyone should be looking at labs, because then you can measure your progress and know where you're at.
I love that you started right with the free and the practical. I mean, that was as practical.
Yeah.
Take notes, ladies. That was as practical as it gets. And also you incorporated so many of the free between strength training and scheduling. I know some people would look at your life and be like, well, she's just so disciplined. I just don't know if I could do that. But you didn't start this way, right?
Yeah,
So
it's been a build.
how did you build up to this? Was it like you just incorporated new things along as you learned them?
Pretty much, yeah.
And so for the person who has excuses where they're not wanting to get to that level of discipline because it feels overwhelming. Those free and those practical things, starting with routine, how do you incorporate that, or how would you encourage others to incorporate that when they have kids or a husband who works or some of those things? What's another practical thing that they can do, especially around scheduling?
Yeah, I think that you have to build it in, right? So my day, every single thing is scheduled, because if it wasn't, then there's a million different things that can pop up, right?
Yes.
So my workout is scheduled, and I get it. If you have children, if you are super busy, I mean, I've been running businesses. The internet sometimes thinks that I don't work, and biohacking is my full-time job, which a lot of it is my job, but I'm also I've had multiple companies, so
Yes.
I wake up a little bit earlier. I get all my, different non-negotiables, as I call them. And also you can build this stuff into your day. Like, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. If you can get 30 minutes of exercise, intentional exercise twice per week, and then you're running around with your kids getting 10,000 steps per day, then that's great. And you can really help your nutrition from just meal prepping. So
Yes.
take a Sunday and decide what you're going to eat. I think a lot of times people can't stick to a plan because they're not thinking about it far enough in advance. Like, I'm never caught off guard. I'm not stuck without food because I just prepare a little bit in advance. And if you can just block out, 20 minutes and think about, what is my week going to look like? How much am I going to exercise? How much am I going to walk? What do I have time for? And then build it in. Then,
Yes.
I mean, that's a great place to start.
Absolutely. I love that you are talking about exercise as intentional a couple times a week, but helping your kids as a form of exercise.
Yeah.
There's chasing your kids around the house, getting
Playing
their diapers
sports
chased,
with them
playing
or
with
whatever,
them. That's exercise.
Yeah.
And I think so many times we're discounting that and we're thinking, oh, it's got to be in a gym if it's proper exercise. But that is just as effective because it's functional training.
Totally.
Lifting your child off the floor, you're working a lot of muscle groups, and there's so much to be said about incorporating that, being active with your children. As one of the most measured women in the world, if not the most measured woman, you mentioned earlier about labs. You talked about a lot of free things, changing your schedule, getting up a certain time, and those sort of things. What's a good lab that you would recommend someone start with, just as a starting point?
Yeah, I think, some
reference.
basic blood work, looking at a metabolic panel, complete blood count, hormones. If you can do more of an advanced lipid panel, something like an NMR. So that's going to look at not just the HDL, LDL, triglycerides, because we know it's a more complicated picture than that to actually assess your cardiovascular risk.
Yes.
So an NMR is going to be looking at the size and the shape of the particle. You want to look at inflammation markers like HSCRP. That's a good place to start. Really just a basic blood biomarker panel with an additional NMR and additional hormone labs would be
Yes.
great. Maybe throw cortisol in there if you feel like you're really stressed, to see where those numbers are at. But I would love to see that. If you want to layer additional things on, you could do something like a gut test. Like, the gut impacts your health in so many ways, from your hormone health to your skin health, energy levels, brain fog, mood, so on and so forth. Your immune system's mostly housed in your gut. So you could look at a gut test maybe once a year. That'd be great. And I really love these Nutri-Eval tests, or nutrient status testing, because we're in a conference where there's probably, I don't know, 500 different supplements here, and it's
Right.
exciting to take all of these, right, and be excited about all of the potential benefits. But there are sometimes conflicts with supplements. There's a Goldilocks rule, so too much can also not be a good thing. So if you can, and you can test some of your vitamin levels, then you'll know what you're deficient in, and then you can target supplement, and then you can still have fun with other supplements, if you want to do an NR, like NED precursor, or some of these other longevity supplements, you can incorporate it. But I think at the end of the day, I'm putting out my labs and putting out my protocols, showing what I'm doing as a woman, but the best and most accurate form is going to be bio-individual, right? So a for you, medical plan, essentially.
Absolutely.
Is ideal.
Thank you for that information. I think you just gave a lot of information for our viewers, especially the ladies. And with the non-negotiables that you referenced earlier, is, other than the getting up early, getting morning sun in the eyes, going to bed, not eating 3 hours before.
Yeah.
Are there any other non-negotiables that you would tack onto that are freebies?
Yeah, I mean, stress reduction. So women actually are more sensitive to stress than men. Like if my husband and I both got in the same cold plunge at the same temperature, I would have a higher and larger stress response than he would. And
Okay.
from a baseline standpoint, it's proven and supported by science that women have higher baseline levels of stress. So that doesn't necessarily mean like my husband probably has a more stressful job than I do, but his stress is lower on his Oura ring than mine is because women are naturally a little bit more prone to have higher stress levels. It could be evolutionarily, we were meant to be moms, so maybe we are supposed to have heightened senses to hear babies. I'm not sure why exactly we have these higher levels of baseline stress, but building in that intentional. So that could be going on a walk in nature that's supported by science to decrease stress levels. It could be making contact with the earth. It could be just breath work. It could be a
That's a good
meditation.
one.
It
Yep.
could be anything, but intentional stress reduction. We know that I think about 80% of doctors' visits are related to stress. So managing that stress is super important. If you have a pulse or you can get to a clinic with a pulse,
Yes.
that's a great way to de-stress. So that would be definitely another non-negotiable.
80%.
Yeah,
That's
wild.
that's staggering,
Yeah.
but that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it contributes to so many other health issues that develop over time.
Absolutely. Yes. Now, you are juggling quite a bit. You're talking about stress load. You're running multiple companies. You've been working with clients for years to help them achieve breakthroughs that you've gotten to. What does the next year have for you?
Yeah, I have a lot of fun speaking. I'll be speaking in Sweden, and then I'll be speaking in Paris, and then Cannes, and then, really putting out a lot of long form content on YouTube.
Great.
Finalizing, working on my book and finalizing, my book deals. And so, yeah, we'll have a book coming out at some
Yes,
point
I'm excited about
in this
that.
year. Yeah, me too. I'm really excited. So, yeah, just working on my health, doing all the female longevity things.
And does your husband get to travel with you when you speak?
I drag him along sometimes, but we became the primary owners of a sauna company that's been around for about 30 years.
Okay.
They create low VOC, low EMF saunas. And it started out I just wanted a sauna, and now we own the majority of the company. And my husband is now the CEO. So he has a lot on his plate. So
I'm sure.
he's at home working a lot of the time now.
So the drag is not because he doesn't want to come, it's just his workload.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he's running businesses too, and he comes from time to time. He's going to be here on Friday with me.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's going to be able to catch some of
Yeah.
that. I definitely want to hear that as well. I have to say thank you, though, especially because I have 3 daughters and you're setting such a good example for the young women of this generation. I love that you are calling women to embrace that holistic health lifestyle, to look at their lives as something to steward rather than just survive through. And you've been setting such a good example for my oldest two, especially.
Aw.
They're reading labels.
Love it.
They're getting disciplined. They're looking at their schedules,
Aw.
and so
I love that.
you're rubbing off on this generation.
I
It's
love
been
that.
so fun to watch them. And let's talk about teenage girls for just
Yeah.
a second. With all the pressure that they face with fitting in, and
Yeah.
that's something that my daughters have had a hard time with, when they know they should eat certain things just because other people are eating or drinking certain things.
Yeah.
What would you say to the young women that you would have loved to have heard at a teenage years, or maybe you did hear and it was something that carried you to embrace this kind of lifestyle young and early on?
I think this might not necessarily be in respect to health necessarily, but I think what it's a kind of famous quote, but it's don't do things to impress people that you might not care so much about their opinion, right? I feel like us women have so much pressure to be perfect in every area. We know we're supposed to be perfect, in a relationship. Well, obviously young girls, but how you look and how you carry yourself and how you do in school and sports and all these things as a young girl. And it's we really have to think, are we doing it because we want to, or are we doing it because we feel pressure to do it to impress someone, And so I think as long as you can be impressed with yourself at the end of the day, that's what really matters. So now, and we all go through it as women, but now I'm mostly wanting to do things that impress myself, impress my husband. And, that is what makes me happy.
It's focusing on what matters most, getting back to the core.
Yeah. Doing things that are fulfilling for you, that, develop your character, but not necessarily things that just, are for show, I think, but we're so pressured to do that. So I
Yes.
think that would be, and then I think from a health standpoint, just try to minimize and get rid of the candy and processed foods. I know it's
Yes.
easy to grab, fun, they're cool colors, they look nice. I feel like there's TikTok trends of like junk foods that go like
Yeah.
viral, and then
Ugh.
kids want to eat them. And
Right.
it's like, well, just know that like, God made us this amazing food that's from
Come
nature
on.
that is like so nourishing to you. And if it has a million different ingredients in it and it's made in a factory, it's probably not going to be that beneficial.
And there's so much to be said about how your taste buds change when you start adopting that kind of
Yeah.
lifestyle. Because now my daughters, they don't want candy. It's
Yeah.
just, it's too sweet. They
Yeah.
can taste the chemicals, and they're going to reach for fruit now.
Yeah.
They say, this is nature's candy and this is what I want.
I agree.
And
Yeah.
it has made all the difference. So having those healthy alternatives and
Yeah.
giving yourself that time has helped them. I know you mentioned going to Europe. So for our European viewers,
Mm-hmm.
how can they stay connected with you so they know when they can catch your next lecture or speech?
Well, you could follow me on Instagram at Kayla Barnes, KaylaBarnes. And then my website is kaylabarnes.com. And then I will be speaking at Superhuman in Sweden. I will be at Vivitech, I believe, in Paris. And then Longevity Docs Network in Cannes. So
Awesome. And on your website, you also show the brands that you use.
Yeah.
And you post your protocols
Yeah.
and you give a lot of free information.
Yeah.
So you're really removing the excuses from our generation. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
But we all need all the help we can get. Is there anything else that you want to share about connecting with any of our viewers?
I think that's it. Yeah, if you're a woman and you're looking for longevity protocols, it's an N of one experiment that I'm doing, and my medical team helps develop these protocols. But I think there are things that we can all teach each other. So I would love to have you, in as part of my community.
I love it. And you can find Kayla Barnes, as she said, on her website. Make sure you follow her on Instagram. She's putting out lots of really quality content. Those little tidbits that encourage you throughout the week when you're tempted to reach for that donut or whatever. And you could just go on Kayla's
Yes.
Instagram feed and scroll and remember why you're making those good decisions. This is
love
one
that.
mission with many voices. Kayla, thank you for bringing yours to the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And make sure you follow PulseCast as we are at the intersection of impact and innovation. And we are on the front lines of this wellness movement that is continuing to grow and build in our generation. So stay tuned for the next conversation here on the PulseCast.